ultramarine blue. Beautiful colour, should be pretty good. Let's just bang in a few of the darks, just get some of the shapes. Just feel the composition, what I want to do today. That's close on what I want, yeah. A little bit more white mixed with that, just here. Pull that in there. So today's painting is really going to concentrate a bit more of the ultramarine and alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, make a nice dark. Now I'm painting on board today, so with the palette knife and the board, it's a little bit harsher than painting on canvas. If you're painting on canvas, that little bit of give just gives you a little bit more room for softening. So it's a little bit more difficult to soften when you're working on a board rather than canvas. But we're not going to let that worry us because it's all fun, isn't it? So what we'll do is just work with it, and as it comes time to soften, I'll just show you a few techniques that I do to help soften. Alright, so that's something along those lines. Yep. Yeah, not too bad. I'll just have a look at that for a minute. Bit of paper towel, we'll just clean that off. Alright, so now I've got a fairly simple palette here. I've got the ultramarine blue, I've got the burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, yellow ochre, titanium white, some magenta and viridian green, and I reckon that'll do it. Now what we're going to do is I've taped that off, I've measured, that's nice and level for a horizon. I'll get some of that ultramarine blue and white, mix that up with a bit of burnt sienna just to knock it back a little bit so the chromatic saturation is not quite as intense. It's ever so slightly greyed by the ultramarine blue, because you've got ultramarine blue here on the colour wheel. Burnt sienna is a type of orangey sort of colour, so that'll be opposite on the colour wheel, and if you put them both together and mix them, they go a little greyer, so it's just knocked the edge off the intensity. Just to set it back a little bit so it's not too dominating. And that tape, you'll see me use the tape before, it's very good for just getting a quick effect, a nice even horizon. Peel the tape off almost straight away, it's already done its job. But it really does save you down the track, so you don't end up with, as you're finishing off the painting, realising there's something wrong and you go, I like the painting but there's something going on. And what it can be is you may have a horizon that's slightly crooked and the whole flow of the painting is not, the composition's not flowing as well as it should. So it's best right at the start, get it how you need it, and then peel the tape off. And you're in the game, look at that. Alright, we'll go for viridian green, bit of yellow ochre. I'm going to paint, what have we got, a bit of burnt sienna, hang on. I'm going to paint the colour of the main breaking wave itself. I might throw a bit of ultramarine blue in that. Let's just see what we've got. So it's mainly viridian green, a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of ultramarine blue. Yeah. Just put a bit of that on for now. I can go right down into there. A little bit more blue in that. Now as it comes more across here, I'll start blending and changing the colour, because what I'm going to end up with is around this side of the breaking wave is going to be more the sand stirred up from the bottom. When you get those breaking waves and it stirs the colour of the sand up itself on the bottom, lifts it up into the wave and you get the colour of the sand itself. As it moves over further, then its colour will just clean water, so there'll be a nice blend as it moves across. Might just go for a little bit more of this. We'll go a bit of Viridian green. Just going to roll that a little bit, so a bit more Viridian green with the ultramarine blue. I can go about there. Okay. Bit more of the ultramarine blue, mix that up. I'll just take this down a little bit further, so it's a little bit, this side's just dropping a bit, the wave can drop a bit there. Yeah, something like that. Yep, about it. Alright, now start introducing more yellow ochre, and I'll use the burnt sienna yellow ochre combination with white. Let's have a look, see what we get. Just make it up as we go. Alright, so that's on the edge of that green. Let me see. If you blend that with it, you can see you're starting to get that combination. With the sand starting to come in. Just that little bit. Just go for some more of that brew. So we've got more burnt sienna and yellow ochre, more titanium white. Get that all mixed up nicely. Yeah, just a twang more burnt sienna in that, so it's a slightly more earthy colour. What's that one like? It's not too bad. A bit more white to lighten the tonal value. Right. There's some little marks just to get it to blend better. So that's the thing I was telling you earlier about using different techniques. If you've got board instead of canvas and you're not using a brush, it's a little harder to soften. But by using techniques like so with the palette knife, like you've got a large palette knife, but by pulling it together like so, you can get a nice blend. And you can either leave it with the little marks, or once you've got those little marks and blended it, you can then pull a lot of those marks out and just make it a smooth blend. But to start with, to get them to come together, that's a good technique. I'll just put that across over here so we get a subtle graduation as it comes along. That's going along nicely. All right. I just make a slightly toned down version. So I've got burnt sienna, a bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of the blues to lower the key. I'm trying to lower the tonal value. Mix a bit of that with it. I want it to be more of a shadow version, so the wave. So that's a darker tonal value. The foam as it's breaking is starting to create its own shadow, but you don't want it to be too dark. You just want it to be a darker value than the foam itself. There we go, it's just a little bit darker. Very good. Now, there's more burnt sienna. Get some of that white. So we've got the burnt sienna, the ultramarine blue, but with white now, so I've lightened the value of it a little bit. It's not pure dark. What I'm trying to do is create some of that rock, colour those rocks. Just lighten the value a bit with a bit more white. That's about it, yeah. I'm just building the rocks into a pleasing shape. You don't have to do exactly what you saw at that very second. You're trying to build a good flow of compositional flow lines. I can go down there. Let's put a nice lighter bit just here, shall we? Just there's lighter. Bit more white in the mix. Now, I've just made that ever so slightly more ultramarine blue dominated here on the edge, because that's going to be a bit of reflected light, because that's wet rock there, as it is here too. So I'm going to put some of the cooler reflections of the sky and whatnot in there. Reflecting. Yeah. Along those lines, going good, going good. Mix it up a bit. Some of the rock can have more of a slightly yellow ochre or green dominance. Bit of variety in the rock colours itself. Just get a coverage. Burnt sienna, yellow ochre, burnt sienna. Grey it off a bit with those ones. That's a bit more variety, a bit more warmth there. A little bit more warmth through here maybe. You get some stuff growing on the rocks like weed and whatever else. Because you get that, you can tend to go a slightly greener version like that. Just I'm painting a little bit darker tonal value in some of these areas now. Keep that dark there for some shadows. It's all good fun, isn't it? All good fun. I can blend in there. Get rid of some of those whites so we haven't got too much white. Blend, blend, blend. Just got to get a good coverage. That'll be there. It's all happening. Here we go. A bit of magenta on the old finger. We don't really need that. Cover her all in. That's going nice. Now these little white, there's going to be some white areas because I'm working on a board today, there's going to be little clamp marks. The clamps are holding on to the board itself. But what I'll do, later on I'll just move those clamps and just rub that same colour around, push it around a bit, so that'll be eliminated. That'll be the way to go, to get rid of that. Alright, so we're almost there. I'll just put a tang of magenta as well, just a bit of variety. Let's get that in there. Just trying to get that paint on without touching the board beneath the bench. We don't really need paint on the bench. There we go. Okay, go for some more darker values there. That's it. Seems to be all working well. Now what I'll do is clear some of that out. Let's get some white. Going through that ultramarine blue. We're going to use ultramarine blue and a little bit of magenta. Going to start painting the biggest difference now, which is obviously the sky is still too white. So let's get a bit of coverage there. A bit more ultramarine blue. Big chunky lot of paint there, a bit of burnt sienna, you know, just to grey it ever so slightly. Excuse me. What value have I got here so far? Maybe just a twang darker in tone of these, so I'll just go a little bit more blue, magentas. Let me just have a look, eh? Not bad. Just start putting that on. Get a coverage. I can go right across like that. Look at that one go on. I'll change the marks. I don't want just one big long mark, but it's a good way to apply the paint, nice and quick. Now as far as that horizon line, I'll bring it down to that. Not quite touch yet, it'll come very close to touching. Let's have a look. I've got the knife upside down. Might just clean the edge of that knife a little, just by rubbing it like so. So the knife's upside down and I'm bringing the paint down to the horizon. There we go. Almost touching, but not quite. Lovely, lovely. So that's going on good there. See, I've changed the mark so it's not just one big long mark. That can become a little boring to the eye. It's better to break it up so you've got a lot more interest. Like I was saying though, to get the paint on initially, particularly if you're in a hurry, if you're out on location and the wave's just about to hit you, for example, thrash the paint on. There we go. Just touching. All right, time to go up a layer. I've just introduced a little bit more yellow ochre and ultramarine blue. What do we got? Ultramarine blue. The yellow ochre gives it a slightly more of a green version. Yeah, we need a lot of value in that, so we add more white. Okay, get that on. Right. Okay. Ultramarine blue again, but a cleaner version of ultramarine blue. Less of the ochres or less of any colour, much more just straight ultramarine blue. Mix that up into a nice little brew there, look at that. Titanium white, ultramarine blue. A little bit more titanium white to lighten the value a little. And then apply. Mix, 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 blend, blend, blend. Chunky, chunky style. Great stuff. Pull that down into there. It's all about paint. Got to top up with some ultramarine blue. I'll go do that and I'll have a look at what I'm doing at the same time. Alright, a bit more of that blue. Let's take her up a level, shall we? A bit more of a darker value. Maybe a twang of magenta with it to make it slightly more of a red blue than ultramarine already is. Mix, mix, mix. Let's just see. Alright, so that's slightly darker. Just put that on. Like so. Get that coverage to the edges. Make sure I don't wear any. Do not want to wear any paint. Wouldn't be the first time, but I don't really feel like doing that today. There we go, that seems to be working. Right up to the edges. Right up. Yep, there. Nice coverage. Oh, there's a dark value that managed to find its way off the edge of the knife somehow. Alright, let's get some blending going on. Burning the old arms out. Swap arms for a minute, just for a minute, just to let this one relax a bit for a tad. Here we go, now back into it. Just blend it. Right. That's all coming along. Just get some of this green. Just keep extending that wave. I don't quite know why I stopped there. This wave should go right to the edge. There we go. That's it. All right. Now with the foam itself, the white foam, the breaking waves, wipe that knife clean. Most of the wave, even though the white foam is white, I'm just going to knock it back a bit in the tonal value. So if you think of white here on the scale, we'll do black and white. You've got, just say you've got a scale in front of me and you've got black here and you've got white there and you've got all the gradations in between. The foam, I'm not going to do pure white up here. I'm going to bring it down a few scales so it's off white, and that'll give me pure white to finish off with accents. So I'm not using my pure white right from the word go. I'll be using it, like I was saying, as something I can rely on to get the accent itself. So you go, we'll use the pure white, it's got a bit of blue in it. If I mix the opposite side of blue, well, that'll be burnt sienna, type of orange. That'll be a fairly neutral grey, but still look like a white. And if you've got more burnt sienna, it will go more of a warm colour tone. If you've got more of the blue dominant, it'll be a cooler one. So you just can blend between the two. Now let's have a look what I've got here. Just trying to work that out. It's fairly neutral. Could go a little bit lighter in value. We want to be a little bit closer to white. We're going through that white. I'm going to have to, definitely going to have to get more of that on the go. I can see that right now. Now, it might look a bit strange at first, but in keying it down like that, like I said, it'll give me room to play. So all these foams, breaking foam here and there, just ever so slightly keyed down. There. Right. Through here. Down through there. That can be up through there. Down into there. foam flying down. Key that one off. Alright, now what do we got? A little bit of that colour. What do we got here? Some of these wave colour itself. Just a twang of that into there. As the wave comes over. Just going to lift that up a bit high here. As the wave's starting to break, there'll be foam just jutting on the horizon there. Soften that a bit. Soften. Clean that one up a bit. A little bit of foam inside the wave, patterns forming. Bit more white, flick it around. Here, what we got? Yeah, a little bit of that foam going up like a pattern, broken waves. The foam's already broken in these areas, and there it is. Burnt sienna is going to create a little bit of weed colour in there. Maybe a twang of weed in here as well. It's all going well, but I want to extend the tonal value and just get a little bit more of those darkest darks, which I might go for alizarin crimson and viridian green. That's a fairly good dark. Because what I want to do is just make sure that I've got some good darkest darks to make everything pop. It's nice and dark in there. Extend that dark down. Just to give the feeling of light and shadow wherever we need it. Yeah, something along those lines. Not too many white highlights here and there. A little bit of the white showed through every now and then. It's not too bad. Because that can be like little highlights of wet rock, you know, those little highlights you get on the rock. It's just reflecting the light. But at the same time, like I said, it's all accents. You want to save it for the main pieces, not just everywhere, otherwise it'll become too motley. Just blend a bit of that rock colour with breaking foam in there to help pull the two together. A little bit more white, got the waves spewing over the top here and there, so they're spewing over the rock and then falling with gravity. A bit more of that blue in here, I reckon. Reflecting. You don't want to get too carried away though. Just lighten the value of that rock, so it's almost like it's in a salt haze. It's getting lost in a salt haze. Because when I was there, doing all the filming, capturing all this footage, it was unbelievable. It was like I was in a wind tunnel. As the waves were breaking, I had rocks either side of me, and this white misty foam would come rushing straight at you. Fog the camera up, but at the same time would also haze the atmosphere out. So we've got to make sure we get that, don't we? The very haze I was talking about was getting misted into the air, and so it'll soften this horizon as this wave's breaking. It's releasing all sorts of mist and stuff, so got to lighten the value there because it's getting misted out. So I'm just pulling it together with little marks, misting it away. And like I was saying, let's just bring that horizon right down now so we get rid of that white, because that white, it does not exist in the world that we're painting. Over here, so I'm doing upward marks of that. Just put them in, pull up. Like so. We just went over the lines a little, so I'll bring this blue back up. Right. Alright, so I'll just bring this green up, move it up now, so we've got a little bit of white at the top maybe. A bit more green there, the wave's slightly thicker as it's at the very top there. Only leaving the tiniest bit of white. That white's actually the board itself. Just blending nicely. Just pulling it all together. Gradiating. Yeah, nice blend there. How's that going to go? Through there like so, through there like so. A bit more of that can come over here, eh? Let's bring that in. See, I can blend it like so and then gradiate it off. Gradiate it off. Alright, so let's just get some of these lighter values. Just going to lighten that tonal value so that rock's not so dominating. I don't want anything too much near the edge to be dominating in the composition. I don't want to drag your eyes with this white line off the picture. I want it to come through and around, so too much contrast over here will lead the viewer's eye off the subject. So I'll just play the values down a little bit there so they're not so visually as demanding. Sweep that rock, nice rock. Nice marks. Bit of variety. What have we got here? Let's have a look here. Okay, pull that through. That rock can be like that, yeah. Blend. Alright, what do we got? Maybe I'll just get this, wipe the knife clean, absolutely clean. Just trying to pull that edge in so it's really softened. Soften that edge off. A little bit more rock in here. Just working on edges and variety. What do we got? Hang on that. coming along. What I'll do now is I've just had a quick look. I'll just soften this area up here where that wave's feathering. Just feather the top off a bit. Gonna need some more lighter value there, I can see that. What do we got? A bit more of the whites. Just jump up into that. Just lifting with a few upward marks as the wave kind of feathering off. The white highlight's kind of feathering up as the wave's jumping down. Sort of lifting the foam off it like so. Just that feeling when the wave's about to curl over and pounce. Just at the last second you get this kind of silence and this mist rolling off the back. Beautiful stuff. I do love watching waves. I sit there for hours watching breaking waves. Destroying a bit of the foam pattern that got a tad lost before. There we go. Just bits of water running down the rock. It's already gone over and now it's running down. Like so. Now, like I was saying, I was trying to save some of my accents, my cleaner white. I'll just use a little bit of that now. Just want to create, see how that's much more of a pure white. And that's that little bit extra that you need to create your accents, isn't it? So it'll also help give that wave more, that foam more of a 3D feel. Just use it where you need it, sparingly. The wave, feel the action of the wave. Nice chunk there. Right, now you know sometimes you get that, the break of a wave when it's breaking like that, just on the back edge of it, you get this kind of really high key turquoise just as the wave's rolling over. I'll mix that up with some viridian green, a bit of white, half mixed. Just want to pop that in a bit more if I can, to try and really give that feeling that it's dropping in. A bit more white. There's that feeling that she's going in like so. It's getting all blocked in nicely. It's time to start looking a little more and putting just the right marks in the right spot because we've already got the big impression, obviously. Now we've just got to work out subtle marks, softening here, accenting there, taking little bits off, adding a bit more variety, momentum in the, maybe in the breaking wave itself, just moving things around subtly without getting too carried away. So I'll just have another quick look and work out what the next move is. Alright, so I've had a quick look and now I've decided, like I said, because I'm painting on board, it's not quite as forgiving as canvas when it comes to just using a palette knife. And in some ways, if I just grabbed a brush now, I've already got the paint applied, just grab the brush and in a couple of marks, for example, let's have a look, we'll grab one. Just just rub through a few things like so. I'll show you, like this, just to soften that horizon line off. Just a few things like that, a few soft marks in the right place will really just give you that beautiful blend of hard and soft, lost and found. Like I just feel like it's just a tad too harsh, and paintings are always about variety, and one of the bits of variety that you can use is hard against soft, lost against found. So by softening that little bit with the brush like so, just little bits here and there, just all of a sudden makes the painting much more forgiving and less harsh, but at the same time gives you that dramatic energy and a bigger contrast. Just got to work out where though, like I said, you don't want to get too carried away. Just wipe this one clean. Pull through. Pull through. Pull up. Pull up to soften there. Just that little bit here and there really adds to it. I'll get some of that white, pure white. Use it now as a bit more of an accent. I've got a bit more power to work with now for getting some real zhoosh. Just drop that on nicely. Just lay it on thick, why not just lay it on like slabs so you've got a real good accent. You've got an accent in the form that it's a lighter tonal value, but it also got an accent in the way that it's applied thicker, real thick. We can do some softening techniques on the board just by putting too much white up there, but using little marks with this big knife and just blending them off slowly. So that was pure white. Just slowly blending them off with tiny marks. You can get that gradation that you would, you know, with a brush or whatever. An explosion going up. So I've got a large knife with little marks. Look at that, that's working beautifully. That's really giving that feeling that the surf is leaving the top of the wave. That white water's just lifting off as the wave's about to curl over. Oops, got a bit too much of the... Let's go for some more pure colour. As it explodes up into the sky. All right, well, it's got plenty of action and motion, and that's what I want. That's why I've decided I'm going to stop right now, not go any further, because what's going on is at the moment I've applied the paint fairly quickly and rapidly, as you saw, and if I keep going now I may get that laboured look, and we all know that breaking waves like this are all about movement, so I want to keep that spontaneous movement and energy that's in the painting. So I reckon I'll put the palette knife down and leave it at that. But before we have a closer look, let's just talk about some of the things the way I've applied the paint and what I was thinking at the time. Alright, so like I said, that big, there's the keynote there, so the main breaking wave, I saved my whitest whites for the accents itself. So a lot of the foam here, as you saw, if you've got the white scale here to black and gradations all the way through, I've got the colour of the foam somewhere around here tonally, not pure white. And that leaves me that pure white to put on at the end, and that way you just get little flicks and flacks. And because I've left a little bit of white showing through every now and then, there's little white highlights all around, and that's actually the whiteboard itself. And what that's done is really given the feeling when you've got wet rocks or whatever you've got, when there's water lying on it, there's always going to be little bits that have got the highlight from the sun shining on it. So that just gives that, helps to add to the fact that it feels like it's a wet rock. Now the rocks, the whole colour scheme's fairly simple. Like I was using for the darks, the ultramarine blue and the burnt sienna, and that's really creating the darkest darks, but at the same time the ultramarine blue and the burnt sienna with white was also creating the foam. So it's a very simple colour palette really. I've left all the CAD colours out, there isn't any, it's just ochres and whatever else. So I think that's helping to, instead of getting too busy in colour, it's letting all the energy of the wave itself just speak in its, well, it's real to life, true colours. So there's something about that. With tonal painting, there's something about, if you don't exaggerate the colours, but you make it a big, broad statement, it can look incredibly realistic, and that can actually help add to the power of the painting. More colour may make it look a little bit more dynamic, but at the same time you lose that reality, and there's something about having big blobs of paint that look super realistic when you get back. So in working in the midday like this, you don't want to go over the top with colour, just enough subtle colours to make it work. Now I've thrown a few sky blues just on the wet rock, so that's reflecting from the sky into the wet rock, just putting a little bit of blue, and again that's just the ultramarines and things like that, pretty simple stuff. A little bit of the turquoise on the back of the wave as it rolls over, just to give it a bit of a feeling of energy. A nice gradation of the warm tones, the wet sand, moving across just into the clean wave itself. Using, like I said, you can use a brush to soften, or if you want to use a knife, and it's harder to do on board than canvas because it doesn't have any give, the board. Like I said, still use a big knife, but just use little marks like that and you can gradiate it off. It's amazing what you can do with that. And it still gives it that kind of spontaneous thing because you're using a big instrument to create the effect. Alright, pretty happy with all that. Let's get the camera off, come buzzing in and have a close look. Alright, thank you.